Okay, so we're looking at now quadratic expressions. And we want to first of all understand what is a quadratic expression. What is a quadratic expression? So now, if we're talking about quadratic expressions, we're talking about a form of algebraic expressions, right? So this is a type of algebraic expressions. And if we talk about algebra, we're talking about, an expression that has numbers and letters, right? But this type of algebraic expression has a squared on the letters, right? So for example, if I have something like x squared minus 2, I have a squared here, so that becomes a quadratic expression, right? If I had no squared, if I had something like this, x minus 2, this is just a simple linear expression. You can call that a linear expression. But when there is a squared, it's now a quadratic expression. You can even have something like 2y squared plus 3y minus 4. If there's a squared here, it's a quadratic expression. So quadratic expressions are expressions where there is a power 2 and it is the highest power on these variables or on the letters there. So what we want to do first is to factorize quadratic expressions. We want to look at how we can factorize quadratic expressions. Now, typically, if you have an expression of this sort, when you factorize it, you should have two brackets at the end. So that's what it means. To go from here all the way to the point where you have two brackets, that's going to be what you call a factorization. So the first thing we're going to do if we're going to factorize this is we need to first of all look at the first term and the last term of the expression, right? The first term is always the one with squared, and the last term is always the one without any letter. So there's no letter here, it's just a constant plus 14. So the first thing we do is we multiply these two. So we multiply the first term times the last term. X squared times plus 14. Remember, take into consideration the signs. So this is a positive x squared times a positive 14 there. I just record this on the side here. I get a plus 14 x squared. So if I multiply these two, I'll get a plus 14x squared. The next thing we need to do is to identify the factors of this plus 14x squared, right? Factors are two numbers, right, that multiply to give you this result here, right? So for me to get plus 14x squared, I should have a plus 2x and a plus 7x, or I can have a minus 2x and a minus 7x. A plus times a plus will give you a plus 2 times 7, 14, x times x squared. So that works. Minus times a minus also gives you a positive. And then 2 x times 7x will give you 14x squared. So these pairs of factors both multiply to give you your plus 14x squared. But what we want to do is we want to pick a pair of factors which adds up to give you this middle value. And again, take note of the sign. So we want to look for the pair of factors which adds up to give us plus 9x. So if I look at it here, minus 2x minus 7x will give me a minus 9x. But plus 2x and plus 7x will give me plus 9x, so I'll pick this pair here. So that's the pair that you pick. So I'm just going to erase some of this and make it clean. When you found your pair of factors that adds up to give you your plus 9, you remove this plus 9 and put your plus 2x and your plus 7x. So I can rewrite the same expression as x squared plus 2x plus 7x plus 14, right? So now I've replaced plus 9x with these two, plus 2x and plus 7x. From here, I simply factorize in pairs, right? I look at the first two here, terms. I can factor out an x there. I'll be left with x plus 2. And then if I look at these two terms here, plus 7x and plus 14, I can factor out a plus 7, and then in brackets, I'm left with x plus 2. Now note, at this point here, what is in the first bracket must be the same as what's in the second bracket. If these two are not the same, then there's probably an error somewhere that you need to fix. Then from here, I simply take the first bracket, which is x plus 2, and I put the other things that are outside the bracket in another bracket, so that's x plus 7. So when it's like this, we have successfully factorized our x squared, sorry, plus 9x plus 14. Now let's try another one, right? So again, we look at our first term and our last term and we multiply them, right? So in this case, we have minus 26 times a positive y squared will give you minus 26y squared. Now I need to look for factors of minus 26. But remember now, if I have a negative, right? For me to get a negative, that means one of the factors has to be positive and the other one has to be negative, because positive times negative gives you negative, right? So the signs on the two factors must be different. So I can have a plus 13y and a minus 2y, or it can be the other way around. It can be minus 13y and a plus 2y, because plus minus gives you a minus. 13y times 2y will give you 26y squared. So that's what happens for those two factors. But then I look at my middle term, right? This plus 11y. I look for the pair of factors that gives me a plus 11y if I add them. So 13y minus 2y gives me a plus 11y. So I take these pair of factors. Once I take this pair of factors, I use them to replace this middle term here. So I can write my expression now as y squared plus 13y minus 2y minus 26. So I've removed plus 11y and I've put plus 13y minus 2y. When I get here now, I can now factorize in pairs. I look at the first two here, y squared plus 13y. I factor out y, I'll get y plus 13. I look at these two here, minus 2y minus 26. I factor out a minus 2, I'll get y plus 13. When I factor a negative, the sign here changes from negative to positive, right? That's what happens when you factor out a negative. Whenever you factor out a negative, the sign changes. So now I have y plus 13, and then there I have y plus 13. So I can move on, take this bracket, y plus 13, and then take what's not in brackets, y minus 2, and then that gives me my result of factorization there.